Hey everyone, quick intro. Maybe you're here because you were around in the 90s or early 2000s and you recognize this, the chain reaction machine from the picture book I Spy called the balloon popper. Now, as an experienced chain reaction artist, I'm wondering if we can rebuild this machine to give it more efficiency, more coherence, more variety even. There are many different ways to approach a rebuild, and I will be attempting 2 of them. The first one will be a recreation where I'll have to keep all the steps from the original machine and I can only change or add things that I think will make it more reliable. The second one will be an update where I can replace entire steps and sections with ones that look more like chain reaction art in 2021. This is where I'll be making a lot of personal stylistic choices too. I don't think anything that I throw together at home will fully capture the charm of the original machine, but hopefully this is a good look into how machines are built nowadays. So now that you know what this video is about, I'll let my voiceover take it from here. Enjoy! This machine was made by I Spy photographer Walter Wick, who says he made it by persevering through trial and error. And I like that. That's exactly how you make a machine. And it really pays off since there's a lot I already love about the original machine. If we keep all the original steps, there's honestly not much that needs to be changed. The motions are already pretty direct and clean, and this machine doesn't have anything ridiculous that we can't follow. Plus, a 3 out of 11 success rate is really good, and that will be hard to beat. But let's start at the beginning. After setting up most of the structures on which the start of the machine will rest, I placed the 3-part opening track. Now, it's a ball rolling down a track, a timeless element for a chain reaction machine, so nothing much needs to be changed there. It ends at this stand made of connects, which I'll be using in place of Tinker Toy. Then, this brings us to the machine's first point of improvement, the helmet pulley, and the only point in the machine where I needed to add a step. See, in the original machine, it looks like a marble falls into the helmet, then it swings and drops, and then the curvature of the falling helmet is what knocks over the dominoes. To me, this feels too unreliable. The curvature of the helmet is such a small thing to rely on, and plus, it's a completely vertical motion going into a completely horizontal motion. So we need another intermediate step, and I added a popsicle stick lever. This gives the swinging pulley more room for error, and it can land anywhere on the lever to knock over the dominoes. There are many solutions to make this more reliable. You could make another lever out of connects, for example, but this is just what works for me. Additionally, I extended the top of the pulley to allow for more space so they don't swing into each other on the way down. Now, the domino line following the pulley rests on a curved track, which I don't have. Maybe one day I'll have the space and materials to do the woodworking for those tracks myself, but the step in the machine is a domino line and I've still made a domino line. The step itself doesn't change. Same goes for the Hot Wheels track, which replaces the next train track. Moving on to the baseball, putting a ball in free fall feels very non-traditional, especially to set off a clothespin. This is because after it hits the clothespin, it's prone to just rolling around since there's nothing to hold it in place, and that can be very distracting and problematic. Since we have to keep this step for now, I added a cup at the end of the clothespin to catch the ball. Let's see if this works. Yep. Oh, and I used a lighter, less bouncy ball. This will work for now, but you can bet we'll be revisiting this. Next, the machine dumps dirt into a toy truck, which tips a ramp. For the ramp, I put a tape hinge at the fulcrum, which not everyone would do probably, but I can get mine to be super secure. Just one piece of tape on each side, then really flatten the hinge, and that's not shifting or going anywhere. This ramp also needs guide rails just to be safe. It's hard to say whether the truck will drift. I also cut the blue stripe short to give the truck a set starting point so we know where it needs to be to tip the ramp. And that's that section done. Oh, but I bought a better funnel. Wasn't gonna pass that up. Okay, once the truck is rolling, it tugs a string. Again, that's not super traditional, but I've done worse and still made it work, so we'll just leave it as is. I also have no mini xylophone, so this will have to do. With a few extra components put in place, so far so good. The force of the hammer leaves the ball with very little room to drift, so no guide rails needed this time. This leads into the spoon lever, for which I just tied 2 spoons to a dowel with a rubber band. As was the case with the clothespin ball, the important thing here is that the ball could not escape the spoon and just roll around freely. So I put a block underneath the spoon to keep it from tipping too far, which did an okay job holding the ball. But after testing the full machine, I did go back and add barriers to the edge of the spoon, because if the ball did happen to leave the spoon, yeah, don't want that. Anyways, the spoon releases a red ball which hits a train on more of that train track, but since that track has to curve, I just tried my best. And one excruciatingly long domino line later, which we will be revisiting, we arrive at the balloon popping finale. The final string on the structure is held in place by a key. For me, that's definitely not the most optimal thing to use, especially since I don't have that special shaped key. So I just used the regular key I had and adjusted it accordingly, but again, not optimal, only because we had to keep the step. And for the release leading up to the key, I made a mini chair out of blocks with another tape hinge to really make sure it tips in the right direction. Just having it sit unsecured on the fork like that feels sketchy. A big part of the chair is over the fulcrum of the hinge as well, just to make sure it tips at all. And just to secure the sharpness of the balloon popping element, I used a push pin. Then I went back to the very start of the machine and added the marble pusher, and that was the machine complete. Now let's see it in action. Thanks again to Walter Wick for this amazing work of art. This was a lot of fun to study and recreate. Okay, my turn. Our second rebuild of this machine will use the first one as a starting point. I won't be starting from scratch, though a lot of the machine will end up being replaced, starting with the domino lines. Don't get me wrong, I love domino lines, but our goal here is machine art only, and domino art is something else. Plus, if you're testing the machine over and over, you do not want to reset an entire line of dominoes in between each test. Single dominoes are fine, but there are better alternatives to making an entire line of toppling dominoes. So the elevated domino line is now gone. I've chosen to do a tape measure trick. It will start extended, then retract to trigger something else. To pull off this motion, it's important that the tape measure is held firmly in place because it wants to pull quite a bit when in the extended position. This is where a strong set of supporting materials is crucial, and I've upgraded the popsicle stick lever so it will hold the tape as firmly as possible. The tape measure transition also gets in the way of the green car we were using, but no problem, we have a smaller car. And now, here's my solution for the clothespin ball. The ball is now a domino. A domino is much easier to control, but we want something we can definitely rely on. It's really important to secure the objects in your machine so they only do their intended motion. So we're going to add an extra pulley right here and thread a string through it, which we can tape to the domino because it's no longer a ball. Now the domino falls and there's nothing else it can do but pull the string, and the string is secured on both ends so it always goes taut and pushes the block forward. The block is held by a tape hinge too, and it can only fall on the clothespin. Also, I don't know why the string was threaded around the structure so much, it can literally just go straight from point A to point B. I guess I could have fixed that for the recreation too, but you just notice more things when you're building the same machine twice. Now we're going to take a big departure from the original machine with this section. It feels like there are too many instances of balls on ramps, so I made a new quote xylophone, and this time it spins. This will replace the ramp, and I think it will add more variety to the steps in this machine. Here is what it does now. While we're on the topic of increasing step variety, I was also not keen on leaving this section as something simple. I get that this machine was originally supposed to be followed just by looking at a picture, which means that simple domino lines and balls on ramps did the trick. But if that's all machines ever did, they would never have long-term appeal, especially machines that you can watch in video format. The end goal for machine art nowadays is never to simplify your steps and get a good failure to success ratio. It's about discovering new motions and concepts, figuring out the most efficient ways to build them, and then recording one presentable working take. So if this update isn't as good as 8 for 11, or even 3 for 11, that's no big deal for me. This updated section also means we need to lower the spoon lever, but it's no problem to use a smaller ball. And now, we will be extending that curved track to just go the distance all the way up to the fork. I used Connect Roller Coaster, which I've never used before and will probably barely use again. This is the only part of the machine that isn't really my style, honestly. I only needed something long and twisty like the original domino line. Okay, we're almost done. Let's now put the balloon on a stand and move it more towards the center of the machine. There's a lot of empty space right here and we can definitely fill it in. The original machine looked too dense on the left side, and so of course the recreation looked that way too, but let's balance the density of this updated machine as much as we can. I've gotten rid of most of that bulky final structure and made it just a single axle. Also, the balloon now gets popped when the arm is horizontal so we can optimize gravity. This also means no more needing to inflate the balloon to the perfect size of that square to squeeze it in. Here's a balloon I couldn't use for the recreation because I inflated it too short, but I can use it here because this design can pop balloons of all sizes. And for the release mechanism, it's no longer a key. Let's use something that will actually serve to help our design and call on Squirtle, my second favorite turtle Pokemon. The Pokeball goes here, and the ball will push it open to release Squirtle. We need a much bigger ball this time, but small design changes are not a problem. Anyways, that's the machine. I think machine art in 2021 is becoming increasingly stylistic, and that can only mean good things. I touched on general principles like having supporting materials, securing your objects, and using a variety of motions, and that's honestly quite a lot for one video in my opinion, but I hope you've enjoyed this look into the build process. Now enjoy the full run of this new updated machine. Okay, despite what I said earlier, this ratio is surprisingly good. Sometimes these things work out. Thanks for watching, everyone.